There are days when the mind feels like a battlefield, where invisible enemies named "what if not enough" and "what's next" constantly collide. They silently occupy every corner of thought, making the breath shorter, the heartbeat faster, and peace slowly fade away. We think we are preparing by thinking, but in truth, we are being imprisoned by our own thoughts. Anxiety disguises itself under the cloak of caution, responsibility, and care. But beneath it all, it is nothing more than a cold wind of fear blowing across the field of what has not yet happened. Buddhism saw through this thousands of years ago. The Buddha taught, the root of suffering is attachment. And anxiety is one of the most subtle forms of attachment, clinging to a future that has not yet taken shape, clinging to a scenario written by the mind itself. When we try to hold on to every possibility, to control every outcome, we lose the only thing that truly exists, the present. It is in this very moment that anxiety is fed. It drains our energy, leaving no space for stillness. In truth, fear does not exist in the world outside. It arises from the way we perceive the world. When the mind is untrained, it creates countless stories, and we believe them as if they were real. A small comment becomes a threat. A silence turns into rejection. A vague future is imagined as a storm. Yet in reality, all that is happening is this breath, this heartbeat, this moment. That is why Buddhism does not teach us to escape anxiety through force or control, but through wisdom. Wisdom does not arise from running away from fear, but from looking straight at it and seeing that it is unreal, just a wisp of smoke in the mind. When that truth is seen, there is no longer a need to fight for the battlefield, never truly existed. All it takes is to let go, to breathe, to return to the present, and everything naturally settles. Anxiety cannot survive in the light of awareness, just as darkness cannot remain when dawn arrives. Peace is not something to be found, but something revealed when we stop creating war within ourselves. And in that silence we begin to see there is nothing to control, nothing to fear, only life breathing and you simply living. If your mind has grown weary from the spirals of thought, if your heart is exhausted from worrying about things that have not yet come to pass, then this is not a lecture, it is an invitation to return home. Because healing does not lie in doing more, but in pausing long enough to realize peace was never gone, it was merely hidden beneath the noise of the mind. Each time you stop, take a deep breath and listen to the air flowing in and out. You are coming home to yourself, to a place beyond should and what if, where only calm and clarity exist. Buddhism calls this mindfulness a state in which you do not try to be peaceful. You simply remain present enough to see. It is not an escape from life, but a deeper way of living within it. For in truth, what tires us is not work or people, but the way we think about them. When the mind is clouded, everything becomes a burden. When the mind is clear, the very same things become lessons. This journey is not about becoming someone new, but about returning to your wholeness, free from fear, unbound by past or future. True happiness does not come from perfection, but from finding serenity amid imperfection. The freedom you seek is not outside, not in the things you can hold, but in your ability to let them go. When you learn to let everything, emotions, people, circumstances, simply be as they are, you open a new space within, where the breath softens and the mind becomes still like a lake after the storm. This is the purpose of the journey, not to eliminate anxiety, but to transform it into understanding. Not to destroy fear, but to see through it so that it no longer controls you. Each time you choose calm over reaction, each time you choose observation over judgment, you move closer to liberation. This is not a path of tense effort, but of gentle awakening. You do not have to be perfect to begin. You only need the courage to stop, to look deeply within and ask yourself, if I were no longer afraid today, how differently would I live? That answer itself is the beginning of transformation. Anxiety is a silent thief. It doesn't arrive with noise, but slips in quietly during moments of stillness when we are alone with our thoughts. It doesn't break down the door. It simply whispers within the mind, what if the worst happens? and that's how it begins to steal peace. But what's even more frightening is that it doesn't steal only once, it steals twice, first in imagination, then in reality. Long before anything happens, the mind has already painted hundreds of dark scenarios. What if I fail? What if they leave me? What if I lose everything? These questions seem harmless, yet each repetition plants another seed of fear. Then the body begins to respond. The heartbeat quickens, the breath shortens, sleep fades away. Nothing has truly gone wrong, yet the entire being is living as if disaster were near. The Buddha taught most suffering does not come from what is happening, but from what the mind imagines. Humans often live through the same pain many times, once in reality and countless times in the mind. We prepare for losses that haven't occurred. We endure separations that exist only in thought. Meanwhile, the present, the only moment that truly belongs to us, is forgotten. From the lens of Buddhism, anxiety is a refined form of attachment. It doesn't cling to the past that's gone, but to the future that hasn't yet come. It makes us stop responding to real life and start reacting to images we create in our heads. The mind becomes a cinema, and anxiety is the film playing on repeat. Yet there is a single moment that can shift everything the moment we realize. This isn't reality. It's just the mind's story. Just one mindful breath, one simple question. Is what I fear really happening, or am I only imagining it? And the distance between you and anxiety begins to widen. Within that space you can breathe deeply, see clearly, and choose peace. Because awareness is not just the ability to see what is wrong, it is the beginning of freedom. When you shine the light of consciousness on anxiety, it starts to dissolve just as darkness fades when the sun rises. And then you understand there's no need to defeat it, only to understand it. No need to escape, only to awaken. For in truth, anxiety was never the enemy. It is only a signal reminding you to return to the present, where everything is still at peace. One of the deepest roots of anxiety is the craving for control. Humans always want things to go their way, people to behave as expected life to unfold, according to the plan we've drawn in our minds. But life has never followed anyone's map. It has its own rhythm, and when we try to force that flow to match our will, we create inner conflict. The Buddha called this attachment to results when our happiness depends on everything going our way, and when it doesn't, we suffer. There is nothing wrong with desiring good things. The mistake lies in believing we can control the entire universe. We cannot command the weather, control another person's emotions, change what has passed, or predict what tomorrow will bring. The tighter we hold on, the more powerless we feel. Buddhism teaches that peace does not come from control, but from acceptance. When we release the belief that everything must go my way, the mind begins to soften. We stop fighting reality and start learning to flow with it. Like a river, if you swim against the current, you exhaust yourself. But if you let yourself move with the water, you still arrive, only more gently. Acceptance does not mean resignation or passivity. It means seeing clearly so that right action can arise. For when the mind is calm, wisdom shines, and only with wisdom can we see what truly needs to be done. Whenever you face a situation beyond your grasp, pause and remind yourself, this moment is unfolding exactly as it needs to. I do not need to fix the universe. I only need to keep peace within. This is not just comfort, it is truth. Everything has its reason for being. Some things teach patience, some teach trust, some teach letting go. When you learn acceptance, a new space opens within. Suppressed energy is released, the breath deepens, the mind clears, and you begin to see the hidden order within chaos. There is no longer a need to force life's current. You simply move with it in quiet trust, for sometimes it is precisely through what you cannot control that life is guiding you to where you truly need to be. Acceptance is the wisdom of the awakened, those who understand that no one can master the outer world, but everyone can master their inner response. And when you choose to respond with peace instead of resistance, you are no longer a victim of life, you move in harmony with it. Anxiety grows in the soil of lack, while peace blossoms in the ground of gratitude. When the mind only focuses on what is missing, it will always feel restless. When it pauses to see what is already here, it naturally feels complete. Buddhism teaches that the quality of life depends on the quality of the mind, and the mind is nourished by what it chooses to focus on. If we keep our gaze fixed on loss, risk, and fear, life feels heavy. But when we shift our attention to gratitude, our inner energy transforms. Gratitude is not merely a pleasant emotion, it is a spiritual practice. Every time we feel grateful, we affirm to ourselves, "This moment is enough." The breath flowing in and out, that is life. Morning light, a warm cup of tea, a simple act of kindness, each is a miracle if we are willing to see it. When the mind is grateful, it cannot be anxious at the same time. The two cannot coexist. Like night and day, once the light of thankfulness appears, the darkness of fear fades away. Create for yourself a daily ritual of gratitude. It doesn't need to be grand, just a few quiet minutes in the morning or at night. Sit down, breathe softly, and think of 3 things you are grateful for today. It might be a peaceful sleep, a nourishing meal, or simply the fact that you are still here alive to experience this day. Write them down if you can. Each word becomes a seed planted in the garden of your mind. Over time, those seeds bloom into a habit, the habit of seeing the good, of recognizing blessings even in the most ordinary things. Gratitude relaxes. The nervous system softens the body and brings you back to the present moment. It doesn't erase difficulty, but it changes how you face it. When you are grateful, fear loses its grip. Instead of seeing life as a chain of deficiencies, you begin to see it as a flowing current of gifts. And when anxiety arises, pause and whisper, "I may not have everything, but I already have enough to be grateful for." Just that, and the mind softens, the breath deepens, the heart opens. Gratitude becomes the bridge that brings you back to yourself, the path that leads you from fear to peace. For happiness does not come from having more, but from realizing that what you have is already enough. One of the deepest sources of anxiety does not come from work or external pressure, but from the fear of being judged. We live in a world where other people's opinions become mirrors, and we constantly adjust ourselves to be loved, praised, and accepted. But the cost of pleasing everyone is losing yourself. We say what others want to hear, do what others expect, smile even when we are tired inside. Gradually, we can no longer distinguish between our true voice and our conditioned response to please others. The Buddha once said, "If you live for praise, you will die from criticism." When happiness depends on others' approval, peace is no longer ours. It becomes a hostage in their hands. Buddhism sees the pursuit of validation as a subtle form of ego attachment. The ego craves recognition, affection, and approval, unaware that this very craving keeps it forever insecure. When someone praises us, we feel elated, but when someone criticizes us, our inner world collapses. We become a boat drifting between praise and blame with no harbor to rest. The only way to be free is to live truthfully. Truth doesn't need to be defended, it only needs to be lived. Remember the story in the sutras. A man once complained to the Buddha, "No matter what I do, people still speak ill of me." The Buddha replied, "In this world there will always be those who praise and those who criticize. If you live for praise, you will suffer from blame. But if you live according to the truth within your heart, you will be free. That freedom does not come from silence or defiance, but from unshakable inner stability. When the mind is at peace with itself, every external word becomes like wind across water, causing a small ripple before disappearing. So instead of striving to be loved, learn to live in a way that earns your own respect. Speak truth, but with kindness. Do what is right even when no one sees. Dare to say no when it protects your inner peace. When you live in alignment with your essence, some people will drift away, but those who remain will be the ones whose souls truly resonate with yours. And above all, you will no longer live in the anxiety of, "Do they like me?" but in the peace of, am I being honest with myself? When your heart rests in that answer, you no longer need to please anyone, for you have made peace with yourself, and that is the deepest form of freedom. The body and mind are not two separate entities. They are like two merging streams. When one is muddy, the other cannot remain clear. When the mind is restless, the body also speaks. The breath becomes shallow. The shoulders tighten the chest, constricts the eyes lose their light. And when the body is tense, the mind becomes even more agitated. Many people try to cure anxiety through thought by forcing themselves to think more positively, but the weary mind only spins deeper into the loop. Sometimes the way out of overthinking is not to think more, but to move. In Buddhist teachings, mindfulness does not exist only in sitting meditation, but in every step, every movement. Zen masters walk not to arrive, but to know they are walking. Each step is a return to the body, a bridge between awareness and breath. When the body is called back, the mind returns as well. That is why practitioners regard walking meditation as one of the most natural forms of purification. No resistance needed, only a gentle harmony with movement. Observe yourself when you sit too long, staring at screens, repeating negative thoughts. Energy stagnates. Anxiety becomes like dust, layering over consciousness. Yet the moment you stand up, take a few silent steps, inhale deeply and exhale slowly, everything begins to shift. Deep breathing fills the lungs with fresh air. Rhythmic steps calm the nervous system. The body moves, energy flows, the mind quiets. You don't have to fight anxiety. You only need to let the body remind the mind to return to the present. You don't need a gym or a strict schedule. Just a small space to move mindfully, walking around your home, stretching under the morning sky, or simply standing still with your hand on your heart, breathing slowly. Every motion is a wordless affirmation, I am still here. When the body and mind reconnect through the breath, fear begins to melt away like fog under sunlight. So whenever the mind feels heavy, don't analyze further, don't search for answers. Stand up and let the body speak. Slow your pace, feel the ground beneath your feet, listen to your heartbeat, sense the air touching your skin. That is meditation, the union of movement and awareness. In that moment, you will realize something profound. Peace is not stillness, but movement in silence, not the absence of storms, but the ability to dance within the rain. Deep within, everyone carries a quiet pressure to do everything right, to say everything correctly, to live flawlessly. Yet it is precisely this desire that keeps the mind tense. We do not allow ourselves to err, to rest, or to breathe. Every small mistake becomes a punishment, every imperfection a sin. And in that constant striving we forget a simple truth. Peace does not wait at the end of perfection. It lives in the moment we stop and become present. The Buddha never taught that humans must be without flaws, only that when the mind is clear, every flaw becomes a lesson. Perfectionism is a golden chain, beautiful in appearance, but still a chain. It makes us believe that only when everything is in order will we deserve happiness. But life is an ever-changing flow. The lotus does not grow from purity, but from mud. If it waited for the mud to settle before blooming, it would never see the light. Buddhism calls this the beginner's mind, a mind free from judgment and pretense, open to observation and learning. When we keep such a mind, mistakes become teachers, failures become bridges, and the process of living becomes as light as breath. Reflect for a moment. How many times have you told yourself, when everything is fine, I'll finally rest? But the truth is, there is never a moment when everything is perfectly fine. Life is always in motion, and peace only arises when we can accept that motion. Instead of forcing perfection, practice full presence. When you eat, just eat. When you work, just work. When you breathe, simply know that you are breathing. Each simple act performed with awareness becomes a doorway to peace. And when that perfectionist voice arises, the one whispering, "Not good enough, not right, not worthy," place your hand over your heart, take a deep breath, and gently say, I release the need to be perfect. I choose to be present. I am enough right now. That is not comfort, it is awakening. For in the world of mindfulness, there are no perfect people, only fully present ones. And when you are truly present, every crack in your heart becomes a place where the light can enter. The world does not need you to be perfect. It only needs you to be real. When life feels heavy, few realize that the burden doesn't truly lie in the present. It lies in the past and the future that the mind keeps dragging in. One part of us aches for what has already happened. Another part worries about what is yet to come. Between these two extremes, the present, the only place where life actually exists, is forgotten. The Buddha called this the illusion of time, for it is the mind's projection that makes us suffer from things that do not yet exist. The present moment has never harmed us. Only memories and imagined futures disturb our peace. When we live fully in today, life becomes simple. When we let the mind wander into the past or future, life becomes complicated. Buddhism teaches that peace can only be found in this very moment. The past is merely memory, the future only an idea, but this breath right now is real. Notice this, when you worry about tomorrow, you miss the beauty of today. When you keep checking if everything is right, you lose the joy of being alive in the doing itself. The body is here, but the mind is elsewhere, and that is the root of all unrest. Learn to shrink your life into a single day. When you wake up, be grateful for the chance to breathe, to act, to love. When you work, focus only on one task. When you rest, rest completely. You don't have to climb the entire mountain of your life. You only need to take one steady step today. For when each step is placed in mindfulness, the whole journey becomes light. In walking meditation, monks practice what is called momentary mindfulness, living fully in one moment, then in the next. No rushing, no delay. Like tending a garden, if you spend all your time worrying whether the flowers will bloom in season, you miss the joy of watering, weeding, and caring for the soil. When we tend to the present moment, the future blossoms naturally. So whenever anxiety returns, pause, take 3 deep breaths, and ask yourself, what small thing can I do today to feel more at peace? Maybe it's a warm cup of water, a short walk, or just a few quiet minutes of stillness. Life does not ask us to solve every equation, only to be present with one number at a time. And when we do that, today becomes enough, and tomorrow takes care of itself. Living one day at a time is not a limitation, it is the art of freedom. It is where the mind no longer carries what hasn't yet come, and the heart becomes wide enough to feel the full beauty of this very moment. There is a subtle kind of exhaustion that many people carry their whole lives, the obsession with being understood. We want others to see our good intentions, to know that we never meant to hurt, that our silence isn't indifference, that our choices have reasons. And so we keep explaining, defending, justifying. Yet the more we try, the heavier the heart becomes. Because not everyone listens with their heart. They listen through their own experiences, wounds, and perceptions. The Buddha once said, "People do not see the world as it is. They see it as they are." Once you understand that, you begin to relax. We cannot control how others perceive us. We can only keep our own hearts clear. Even an enlightened being like the Buddha was misunderstood, judged, and criticized. If one of such vast wisdom could not avoid misunderstanding, why should we expect everyone to see us clearly? The truth is, misunderstanding is part of life. We need not resist it, only stand firm in our inner clarity. Whenever you feel judged or misread, pause and ask yourself, did I act with a pure heart? Did I speak with kindness? Did I intend harm? If the answer is no, then that is enough. No one can take away your peace unless you hand it to them. When you stop trying to be understood, you begin to understand yourself more deeply. You realize that the need for others' validation is in truth the need to validate yourself. Once you truly see yourself, you no longer need others to see you. Letting go of the need to be understood does not mean becoming cold or detached. It simply means you stop bending yourself to fit into someone else's frame. You still love, still speak kindly, still live sincerely, but no longer strain to prove yourself. Sometimes silence is the most enlightened response. And when the heart is at peace, you no longer need to win every argument. You only need not to lose your inner calm. Place your hand over your heart and whisper, "I release the need to be understood. I return to the truth within me. My peace does not depend on others' approval." Repeat this until the words sink into your breath. Then you will see, when you stop trying to be understood, you become free. No longer bound by praise or blame, you live lighter, truer. And finally, you realize peace doesn't come from someone else understanding you, but from you understanding yourself. As we journey through the 8 lessons, we begin to realize freedom does not come from changing the world, but from changing the way we see the world. Anxiety doesn't disappear because life becomes perfect. It fades because we learn how to remain still amid imperfection. Buddhism never promised that life would be light. It teaches us how to make the mind no longer heavy. Each principle is a doorway leading us from ignorance to clarity, from reaction to awareness, from fear to serenity. When we understand that anxiety is the thief that steals twice, we stop letting it rob us of the present moment. When we accept what we cannot control, we cease struggling against the inevitable. When we practice gratitude, we remember that even in chaos, goodness still unfolds. When we stop trying to please everyone, we reclaim ourselves from the illusion of approval. When we let body and mind move together in mindful rhythm, energy is cleansed and the spirit renews. When we release perfectionism, we stop chasing illusions and begin to live authentically. When we live one day at a time, we free ourselves from the burden of time, realizing that today, just today, is enough. And when we let go of the need to be understood, we reclaim freedom for the heart, for we are no longer chained by the eyes of others. All 8 lessons point to one truth. Peace is not a destination, but the nature already within us. It has merely been veiled by fear, illusion, and attachment. Transformation begins not by fixing life, but by illuminating the mind. The mind ceases to be a battlefield and becomes a garden where every breath, every thought, every choice is a seed. If we sow fear, we reap chaos. If we sow understanding, we reap peace. The difference between those who suffer and those who are serene is not circumstance, but awareness. The awakened know when to pause, to observe, to smile at imperfection. They do not avoid the dark, they learn how to bring light into it. This is the essence of Buddhist wisdom, to transform rather than resist, to release rather than cling, to be present rather than escape. And if there is one truth worth carrying through life, it is this: peace is not something we create. It is something we uncover right within the stillness of our own mind. Once you realize that all external seeking can finally rest. In the end, this journey does not lead you to a distant destination. It simply brings you back to where you have always belonged, within yourself. Every lesson converges on one point: peace is a habit. Anxiety is also a habit. And whichever habit you nurture more will become your life. Life does not demand that we reinvent everything, only that we change how we see. When the mind changes, the world changes. When our response shifts, reality transforms. That is the power of awareness, something no one can take away from you. Buddhism teaches that happiness is not the reward of the strong, but the natural result of those who live rightly. Slow down to see, speak less, to listen more, breathe deeply to be present. Each day, spend a few moments returning to your breath, observing your mind without judgment. When anxiety arises, don't try to push it away, simply notice it and smile. When fear surfaces, don't fight it. Place a hand over your heart and remind yourself, I am safe in this moment. These small acts repeated daily become the foundation of a calm and gentle life. Let gratitude be the first breath of your day. Let presence become the rhythm of your actions. Let forgiveness be the way you face the past, and letting go the art of your living. When you choose to live this way, life stops being something to endure and becomes something to experience and learn from. You don't have to be positive all the time, just honest with yourself, and that, too, is a profound form of peace. And remember, you don't need a new life to be happy. You only need a new way of seeing the one you already have. When the mind is clear, everything becomes clear. When the mind is steady, every circumstance becomes a path to awakening. Each time you choose calm over reaction, trust over fear, compassion over judgment, you are planting seeds of enlightenment. So live slower, speak softer, breathe deeper, and walk with the awareness that every moment is an opportunity to return home to your breath, to the present, to the pure and unbroken essence within you. Do not seek peace at the end of the road. It is right beneath each step you take. And when you live with that, knowing each day becomes lighter, simpler, and brighter, as if you've just awakened from a long dream, only to realize that life as it is has always been beautiful enough.